Huh?
The new
No.
people are going, you people are so freaking antiquated.
I know. And they're like, but how's that possible? They look so young. How did they do this back then?
That's right. That's right. They're so incredibly attractive. How can they possibly have children in their 20s?
Exactly.
Which we both do.
This is 911. State your emergency. Hello? I can't help you if I don't know where you're at, honey. Where are you at? Where are you? I need as many units as I can get for Fairfield Road. Give me the numbers.
911, what's your emergency?
Hey friends, it's Fletch. I'm Vice President of Public Safety Solutions at 911 Inform. Welcome to this new podcast series, Off the Cuff, Confessions of an ENP. Brought to you by 911 Inform, delivering next-generation 911 services for the enterprise today and making every second count. In this series, we're going to be talking to ENPs that have been on the job for years, as well as those brand new ENPs that have just passed the test. We'll dig in and have an in-depth conversation and find out what the ENP certification means to them. We'll talk about why they did it, what it means for their career, and what they did to pass the exam. Industry certifications are important to industry professionals, and the ENP certification is one that's admired by many in public safety. So join me as we find out exactly what makes an ENP tick in this off-the-cuff podcast series, Confessions of an ENP. Hey, it's Fletch. Welcome to this episode of Off the Cuff, True Confessions of an ENP. Today we're sitting down with Stacy Miller, ENP from RapidDeploy, another brand specky new shiny ENP. Congratulations on just passing the test.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
No problem. So how long have you been in public safety?
I started back in 97, back as a dispatcher on cards, no cell phones, totally different world than what we're doing now with all the technology.
And where was that?
I'm in Northern California. I dispatched for Consolidated. We did law, fire, EMS, we did like city, PD, sheriff, city fire, and EMS.
Okay. So back then, did you guys have dispatch and call taking, or was it all one?
Yeah, so it's kind of different. So like the law channels didn't do call taking, but everybody else did. So if you're on fire or EMS, you call taked. And then we also had specific call taker positions.
Is it call taked or call took?
Call took, call take, do the call taking. I don't know, take the calls.
That's okay. I'm just trying to make you nervous. That's all.
Hey, I know. Well, I mean, I said I wasn't nervous, so now I'll get nervous.
See, that's it. So that's the whole thing, right? You admitted to me that you were not nervous.
I know. I shouldn't have done that.
You touted it blatantly.
I shouldn't have. I know. I know better now. I'm so nervous now, so we can
you should
take
be.
it down.
Because I know who you work for, and I know who you work for very well.
I know you do, and I know that you will give him a glowing review of our chat.
There's sordid history between me and Mr. Steve Roucher.
I figure you know where all the bodies are buried.
Well, between him and I, we know where a lot. we know who made the plans for the other ones that we don't.
Right. Yeah, even if you don't know, you know a little bit leading up to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and I on the prequel, we have matching mugs.
Yeah. So cheers.
Cheers. Virtual click. This is not the current style, I understand.
It's not. I didn't want to debut the new one. You know, it's limited. So.
Oh, is that what it is? You mean Steve's too cheap to make sure I get one?
No, I mean, I honestly think so far they just gave it out as a gift to employees.
Okay.
I think so. I haven't seen it out in the wild yet, but I imagine it'll be coming, right? You know what is funny?
Not special people that highlight his.
Well, you know what's funny about, let me find a camera, this mug is I didn't get this one when I worked for RapidDeploy. I got this one when I was a customer. I won it on a virtual training or something. I can't remember exactly what it was.
But I actually won mine. Was it one of the?
It was
the one in Washington, like a 911 goes to Washington.
Okay, I did mine. I didn't have mine. Was on like a. Do you remember when RapidDeploy? I think it was during COVID. I'm sure it was because that was right when everything was virtual. They did like a virtual conference.
Yeah,
And
it was a virtual
Erin
conference.
Erin Brockovich, remember? She
Yes.
was the keynote. I loved hearing her talk, but that's when I won it. You dropped your virtual business card into
Yes.
it, and
Yes.
it came in the mail. I was pretty excited. I mean, it's the Yeti.
So was I. So was I, because someone had to pull my virtual card, and I'm sure Steve had to see my name, and he didn't say, "No way, no way."
Right? Well, maybe he wasn't pulling the cards, and that's why we both won.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. So, all right, cool. Customer cheer. Nice.
Yep. Cheers.
So anyway, so you've been in dispatch for a while. Now, so you say it's a
Yeah.
long, long time, since 97. But I got into dispatch in 1980, sweetheart. So you were
Right.
doing cards. I was doing cards on the punch clock. We didn't even have 911 back then, okay?
Yeah, right? So, I mean, I do love the punch clock, though, the time. Do. Like for the pursuits.
Yeah,
And
that was a
people,
real quick.
listen,
Boom, boom, boom. Received,
people
dispatch, arrived.
Yeah. People watching right now are like, what are
What are
they
you
talking about?
Yeah.
Punch cards. Because what happens now? And I remember when we got our first CAD, I've been there a year, and we got our first CAD. And, you go to your training and it seems overwhelming. And like we did Lawfire EMS. So we had to write out 3 cards for a traffic collision. And what in dispatch don't we like? We don't like the way things are. We also don't like change, right? So I was like, you're telling me I'm going to be able to type into a computer faster than I can write cards? I don't think so. And then you had to get up and, distribute them around the room too, right? And so it was very challenging. And then you think back now, what happens when CAD goes down? That's when everybody panics. No, we don't want to write it on paper or cards. Like how things have changed.
I actually had to do both, Stacy. So not only did I have to write out the cards, I had to type the complaints, and I had to write them in the blotter in longhand.
Oh, dang.
Oh, yeah. It was like triple work, man.
Yeah. We entered all our cards at the end of the night. So after midnight, and when you're new, the experienced dispatchers, they're like, here's your stack, Stacy, and then here's their stack. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, I had my IBM Selectric 2 typewriter.
Okay, you win. You had a typewriter. I just had a computer that was, about 2 feet deep.
Well, I had that computer too, the big old IBM console, but the only thing I could do on that was do motor vehicle lookups in criminal history. And that's where the teletypes came in.
Mm-hmm.
And we got this big long form to enter a stolen motor vehicle. And just as you were finishing it, bam, a teletype would come in and wipe out the whole screen.
Oh, no. See, I didn't have to do entry. We had records was separate, so I never had to do entry.
Spoiled. Spoiled, Brett.
Yeah. I mean, I did answer a phone that rang, remember that big, huge, clunky phone?
Oh, yeah. I had a 20-button telephone console.
Uh-huh.
The new people are going, you people are so freaking antiquated.
I know. And they're like, but how's that possible? They look so young. How did they do this back then?
That's right. They're so incredibly attractive. How can they possibly have children in their 20s?
Exactly.
Which we both do.
I know. I'll give a little plug for my son, if that's okay. He's graduating from the police academy in a month exactly. So I'm pretty proud of him. Yeah.
Hoorah.
Yeah. It's going to work down in Slow.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
proud mama moment. Thanks for letting me slide it in.
You're 10 years younger than me, but you've got a child 10 years older than me, or then 10 years older than my child.
Okay. Yeah.
I actually not 10, 5 years older.
I started a little early. I mean, that's kind of what drove me to dispatch, right? I was a young mom looking to have a career, something that I could raise my family and provide and have benefits and all those things. So
sure, because it's just a secretarial position.
Yeah, I mean, totally just secretarial position.
Sure.
Do we want to go down that road?
There's no stress. It's an easy day,
You know what is?
You want? Take your days off, whatever you want. Sure.
You know what's crazy about that, though? Talking about my son, when he grew up in that. He was 3 when I started. My oldest, he was 3, and I think it's going to give him so much more insight into his, law enforcement career. Just when he starts a family and he already knows the challenges, right? The challenges of holidays on different days and the hours and all those things. I want my kids to do whatever they want. I mean, challenge to be a law enforcement officer. So I'm super proud of him, but I just think my experience will lend so much for him. And I already talked to SLO, the dispatchers, and I told them, just so you know, I was dispatcher for almost 24 years. Here's my card. You let me know if he ever sasses you on the radio.
He's going to think he's got it made. On the other hand,
he's a good boy, though. He knows. He used to come up and sit with me, listen to calls, do that. So he knows what they do, and he's a good boy. So,
back when you could do that.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that funny? I mean, he'd be young and he'd come up and want to hear the calls, and I was just like, okay, I get to spend time with my kid. You know, it was nice that what you just said, all those hours and everything we'd work, that like you could have those things. We did Christmas up there one time, I remember.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I used to fight for Thanksgiving Day.
Oh.
Because I dispatched in a little town called Sparta, New Jersey, and we dispatched for two other smaller towns, Franklin and Ogdensburg. And Ogdensburg, one cop town, 1 square mile.
Oh, wow.
And we did police, fire, med for all three towns. But there was a woman, and she's still alive. Her name was Dee Jones. And Dee would bring down freaking Thanksgiving feast for 100 when you were working Thanksgiving Day.
You're like, I want overtime and I want Dee's Thanksgiving.
No kidding. You'd work a double if you had to
be
there
that's awesome.
Thanksgiving Day, man. And
that's so cool.
And she's like part of.
Is she still doing it?
I don't know. I think she's pretty much stuck in the house these days.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, I'm sure she did it for as long as she could get out of the house.
That's awesome. Like, bless her heart, right? That she, on that day, wanted to do Thanksgiving for dispatch and give back to everybody.
I actually brought her up in a podcast like 3 years ago.
Oh.
And somebody called me and said, is she still around? And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. And I called up. I mean, I got the phone book for this little town, and there she is in the phone book.
Aww.
And I called, and I got her daughter, and I'm like, look, you probably don't remember me because you were 4.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is Fuzzy. That was my nickname.
Oh.
Oops, I left that out.
I know. It hasn't always just been Fletch.
From Sparta over, like 20 years or 30 years ago. She's like, oh, my God. And I'm like,
oh, the daughter?
Yeah. She goes,
that's awesome.
She goes, you're like part of history with all these stories. And I'm like,
aww.
Your mother loved me and I loved your mother. And I'm glad that, I made it through the annals of history here. I said, this is a stupid question, but is your mother still around? Because I haven't been around it. And she's like, yeah, she's not doing well. And, she's in bed a lot and she's got some health problems. And, but, can she get to the phone? And she goes, yeah. So I actually got to talk to her, and I'm like, I was in tears, Stacy.
That's so cool. Yeah. Oh,
I just did a podcast about you. And she's like, what's a podcast?
She's like, what's a podcast, right? I bet that made her, not just her day, right? It probably just made like her everything. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Especially because you know how special it was for her that she did that for you guys all those years.
Years now, thinking about it.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, Dee Jones. God bless her.
Dee Jones. Oh, maybe Wes knows her. Dee Jones.
Yeah, maybe. So
that's so cool.
I have no idea if she's still around or what the deal is, but that was part of it back then, man. It was all part of this industry of why I love this industry. And I was so fortunate that when I got into communications, I got to come back to public safety through the communications. And then when I got introduced to the ENP program, because I got a bit of a broadcast history in my career, I could do stuff like this.
Yeah.
Again, I love giving back to this industry. It's just, the people are so cool, with the exception of one or two, Steve Ratcher.
Yeah. And we know who you're talking about.
With the exception of one or two. And, it's just really, really cool. I really appreciate it. And I get to meet cool people like you.
Oh, thank you. I love it. I'd always wanted to do I'll just jump to probably what you're going to ask me. I always wanted to do my ENP. And when I was in the center, you know, you hear about it, you want to do it, and you hear it's so hard, and you have to study, which when you're working 12-hour shifts and all the overtime and life, it's really hard. I bought the book, the study book once, started studying, never, like, a new book came out before I could finish that one, right? So I was like,
that happens a lot, actually.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, so I left the center, I left the PSAP in December of 20. Like Christmas was actually my very last day. And I went and worked for another company for 10 months before I came over to RapidDeploy. And when I got here, I was like, okay, I'm clearly crazy because I'm starting a new job, you know, startup, fast paced, and like, oh, let me learn this new job, but also let me try to study for my ENP. Like, just, you know, nothing easy, right? So I ordered the new book and I started studying. And then my boss, have you met Ryan Chandler? He was great, super supportive. Yeah, so super supportive. Like, this is great for you. It's great for the company. I want you to, you know, take all the time you want to study. And, you know, you're studying for months. And I tested in July. I get COVID in June.
Oh,
I'm like, oh man, are you kidding me? Like, I'm in like the depths of studying, right? That part. And I'm a nervous test taker. So I'm just studying. And I couldn't when I had COVID because I couldn't even think. I knew that anything I tried to study, it was just going to be wasted, right? And I didn't want to go through my study group sessions just to have them be wasted. But yeah, the studying is a lot, but I think it started out like, okay, I just want to get my ENP. Like I want to achieve this goal. I want to study.
Why? What was the real driver?
I think a couple things. I wanted to like prove myself in the industry, right? Like that I had this experience and studying this information and learning this information, like even when you have all the years of experience, right? I mean, people definitely recognize it. They say, wow, you have like 20 years experience or whatever. I mean, they definitely recognize it. But once you get those numbers, letters behind your name, it's just instant credibility. Like that you not only have worked in the industry, but you truly know the industry, right? Like you haven't just worked here, you know the information. And it turned into like so much more though, right? Because you think you're just going to go in and study this information. And then like some of the operational stuff was already familiar. When I left, I wasn't a manager, but I was a supervisor.
Right.
So a lot of the operational stuff, I think when you've been doing, like if you're a supervisor and stuff, some of that just is natural, right? So super nervous about the next gen, right? I think that's what everybody's nervous about, next gen, because, and you're having to learn, I think right now it's a hard time to be studying because you're having to learn all the legacy and you're having to learn all the next gen, but so much of the next gen is not, we're not using it yet. So you're learning like abstract, you know, it's not stuff that you can relate to, you know.
It's conceptual, you're right. It's abstract.
Yeah. And so I think it's a lot to learn right now, you know, like, and then I was surprised on my test. I took my test July 23rd. Of course, nervous test taker, waited till the very last day of the testing period. I had questions on there about 988, right? Like I was shocked. I was like, oh, holy cow. It just, you know, went into effect a week ago. But,
you know, I mean, so we planned, you know, those questions got added the year prior.
Oh, okay.
Knowing what was going on.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember in the NIB meetings when we were going through the exams, we were like, oh no, we've got to include, you know, every year when we take the question bank, there's thousands of questions and we make up 2 tests each year. We sat there and we said, okay, well, we've got to create 988 questions because they need to be seated in there. And yeah, we should start pulling some of these in now because it's going to be relevant. It's going to come quick. And we wanted to get those on the exams as that was becoming relevant in the industry, right?
And it was, and it obviously super relevant, right? I was like, wait, I don't need I don't need to know about LATA or intralata or interlata. Like, I had no questions about that, but I was like, 988, like, oh, I know what's going on here. Let me answer that. And I'm writing with a pen now. I'm taking a written test. But
and when you think about it, a lot of the LATA stuff, it's irrelevant anymore.
Right. And that's why I think it's so hard to study right now. The amount of the body of knowledge, right? It's so big right now. And I imagine, obviously, over the years, it always changes. But I imagine as we progress further into next gen, I don't mean in 2 years, but I mean like in 20 years, the amount of legacy material that you have to learn is going to be like this very small, like historical piece,
it'll be the historical archives.
Yes. And we'll be like, oh yes, I remember that when I used to do that,
Yeah, you and I will be in wheelchairs out on a porch somewhere. I remember way back when.
Right. Back when I used to answer 911. Yep, all that.
Back in 2022.
Oh my gosh, isn't that crazy though? I mean, like,
no kidding. That could be next week for me. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, stop it. But it is like, I mean, that's kind of what drove me to want to work for RapidDeploy, right? If I could just go there for a second, is that like we said, I started on cards. You had Annie, Allie, you knew where people were. Then we went to cell phones and you didn't. And then I have a lot of rural area, lake, all that, and we give Steve a hard time, right? He was like one of the first vendors I met at Calnina. And I was like, I remember my first conversation with him. I said, hold on. You're telling me I can find people now, like I can get a better location when I answer 911? What are you talking about? Tell me more, And I used it, and like when I realized there was this whole big vendor world out there.
Yep.
I mean, because that's crazy. You and I, before we started, we're talking about social media, but one thing I think about social media now that's different than like those of us that started when there wasn't is I do think it brings people together more. Like you look at all the groups and stuff, like even the podcast, right? Like all the dispatchers that don't have the opportunity to go to a training or go to a conference because of staffing and budget and all the things we hear about why you can't go do all that stuff. At least now with like social media and podcasts and all the groups, like they can still learn and expand and stretch themselves and do other things that
right. And especially from this podcast.
As
opposed to Ricardo's podcast or Tracy's podcast. Those are kind of like nice filler for when I'm not on the air. But
I mean, I've never been on Tracy's podcast, so
Oh, really?
But I do love her so much. Talking about studying.
She's my sister.
I love her so much. I mean,
can I tell you a funny story about Tracy?
Absolutely.
So last summer, you and I were talking about this a little bit before. Last summer, I had some cardiac issues, and I was in the hospital actually for most of the summer, in and out. And I was in the hospital at both NINA and APCO conferences.
Right.
Actually, at APCO, attended virtually from a hospital bed, thanks to my company. Guys are sick. But anyway, the one time I was in the hospital, I actually went into cardiac arrest from a mismanagement of some medication. And they brought me back. And, that story got out on social media. And Tracy was kind of like my speaking voice while I was there. And I put out a post about my sister, because she's my sister.
Right.
And, how she took care of my family and kept everybody in contact, because my public safety family doesn't really know my personal family.
Right.
So Tracy was the bridge.
She was that bridge. Yep.
So somebody on my business family, not really associated with public safety, post this video blog, and it's him just walking through the woods reflecting on things, and he's basically telling my story, how his best friend has got a sister that he never even knew about, and he's going on and on. And then I'm like, Tracy, listen to this drivel.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
But it was really heartwarming, and it almost brought me to tears, right? And I'm like, it made me realize the power of social media.
Yeah, right. It is crazy though. I mean, like it can be overused, but there's also the positives, right? I think of we talked about it. I don't know if we talked about it on or off camera, but reclassification and all that. And there's no way the movement would even I feel like it'd have barely any traction if it wasn't for social media and people, putting it out there. I mean, stuff like that. It's so hard, even with the social media and with people coming together from all over and working together across different states, to get reclassified in their own state and hopefully on national level. But without it, where would everybody be? Everybody would just be, you wouldn't be like, oh, this is what worked in California, let me do this, or this is what worked there, let's try this angle. Like you just would all be on your own when you have this, same goal. And so there's a lot of good stuff for all the like crazy stuff and oversharing that people do on social media.
No, we talked about that before we were recording, and it was like you were a mom with a 3-year-old that needed to go to work, so you got yourself a job that was mostly quote unquote secretarial at the time. How little did you know?
You know what is crazy? I mean, I literally had no idea. I had a friend who was a police cadet, and she showed me the ad in the paper, for young people. Jobs used to be posted on print in the newspaper.
Yep.
She showed it to me. Said, Stacy, I think you could do this. And I said, well, I don't know, Chelsea, what do they do? And she said, they dispatch the calls. Like they tell the officers where to go and answer the 911 calls. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. Like, I just had no idea. I back then you didn't do sit-alongs, you didn't do any of that stuff. I went in there blind, and then clearly I hated it because I did it for almost 24 years. So
I'm not kidding. My training was there's the phone, there's the radio.
Wow.
Push that button to answer it, push that button to talk.
That's crazy. Yeah. I remember thinking that an alarm call from an alarm company was like the biggest call I was ever going to take. Yes. I thought, they're like, okay, Stacy, you have your training.
We have a burglar entry alarm at
right.
the dry cleaner.
Bail alarm, like I know the phone number, right? Like I could still recite it to this day. So it's like, but when you're brand new and not, you don't have any family affiliation in public safety or anything, you just don't have any sense of what's a big deal. So it was funny. Yeah, I look back at that and laugh at myself that I thought taking an alarm call was a big deal.
My mom just she had a little digestive problem, and she went to the hospital. She's like 93 years old. She'll be 94 this October. They're allowed to go to the hospital with that kind of stuff. So my brother calls me, oh, mom's in the hospital. Oh, okay. Can I call her? Yeah, sure, no problem. I just picked up the phone and I dialed 383-2121. I still knew the number of the hospital. Of course, I didn't dial an area code today, but, I still remember the police department numbers, the frequencies, the call signs. How come I remember all that, but I can't remember what I had for breakfast today?
I just on, what was it, Friday night, in a conversation out in public, and somebody was talking about something, and I dropped the address, and I was like, oh my God, I still know the address. Yeah. And my friend that was with me, she's retired dispatcher too. She just laughs, right? Like, because she remembers the same stuff.
Yep, it's funny.
So, yeah.
So did you find the ENP test hard when you finally got to sit down for it?
Yeah, I did it virtually.
Okay.
At home. And so that was a little stressful, right? Because you're worrying about when you do it virtually, the proctoring, you're showing everything underneath your table, everything, so just that process and worrying about internet connection. And I'm a nervous test taker. So I felt like I had prepared as well as I could, and I either knew it or I didn't. But I will say, I thought it was hard, but I did good. I got a good score. I'm kind of a perfectionist. So of course I should have got higher, but I did get a good score. But I had plenty of time.
You need to answer 105 questions.
Exactly.
Correct.
Well, I know only 105, but I don't want to just get 105 right. Like anybody who knows me knows that does not fly. So, I did the study guide, and then I did Tracy's, study group, because she speaks my language. like all her little tricks and tips. I'm not a good just memorizer. Like I want to know like the why, and I need to have it be somewhat relatable to understand certain things. So her study group really helped. And she had Brooks and Reinhard do the next gen piece, which they're uber smart. So, and they kept it like understandable for me, you know, but I thought the test was hard. I think some of that is because I'm a nervous test taker though. So here's how I test. Like I go through, if I don't know the answer right away, I just move on. And I don't know if it's this way when you sit for it, but when you do it virtually, you can like, you know, do the tick marks or mark them. So I don't guess. I'm like,
you know it or you move on.
Yeah, read the question thoughtfully, read the answers thoughtfully. If I don't know it, move on. And I would mark them, so I'd go back. And then I went back, and I thought there was plenty of time. I think even after I went back, kind of did round 2. And the ones I answered, I didn't go back and check those. Like I wouldn't have answered if I didn't. I mean, not to say I got them all right, but you know what I mean? In my mind, I knew the answer and marked it.
Exactly.
So,
you're not going to change your mind just because you read the question again.
Yeah. So I felt like I had plenty of time. I tell you what, though, you know, for anybody who doesn't know, when you get that email right away, and, you know, Wes that I work with, and so my other friends that had taken it, you know, told me like, oh, you get the email right away, and this is kind of what it looks like. And so, of course, I'm checking on my phone, and I thought, that does not look like what I think they got. Surely I failed, you know, because I just thought it didn't look the same. I'm nervously checking it, and then you check it, and you see that green with the check mark. I was like, oh, I was so excited, so excited.
Yeah, no, it's when I took my first test, you got that result right there at the center.
Okay.
They gave you a provisional pass fail, but then your official notice came obviously in the mail later. But now you got to wait for that email, and most people get it when they go to the center. They get that email about when they get to the car, is what everybody says. So that's pretty quick. But I could, you know, the feeling that you have when you first get that notification, it's like you just freaking climbed Mount Everest and bungee jumped from the top and did it. Ta-da!
Because you've been studying for so long. It's so much knowledge. I mean, and maybe some people can just read it all one swoop and, you know, they have photographic memory and they're done with it. But for me, I had to really study it and learn it. But that was what I thought was super cool. You know, it was in the industry I work in now, so much of it's, you know, it started out like, I want to get this, I want to prove to myself that I know the industry and all these things, but especially the next gen piece. I mean, having that, I'm by no means a next gen expert, but just having that broader knowledge now of how it all works and things, it's so relevant for your job. I mean, I think a lot of people, we just think, I want to prove, even if it's just to yourself, I want to prove to myself I have this knowledge, but you actually learn so much along the way studying for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, what advice do you have to new people that are on the border of deciding whether they want to be in the career or not, or if they want to be an ENP?
Yeah, I mean, I think the career, I think you have to, I used to tell my new people when they got hired, like, I think you have to know the job is going to affect you. Like,
suck your soul mentally dry. You know?
But I feel like, and we all go through, like, I had a lot of ups and downs in my career. I was that, you know, cheerleader. I've been this super negative person, like all the ups and downs you can have, right? But I think you have to really be thoughtful about, it's going to affect you, but like not letting it change you at your core, right? Like, I think you have to be aware of that and thoughtful. And we started in a different time. I'm fine. Don't talk about it, blah, blah, blah. But I also think you don't need to be like an overshare. Like if you take a call, and because everybody's story is different. the calls that are hard for me may not be hard for you, and that's okay too. I think that sometimes now people think they have to, like, the goal is to not have PTSD, right? Like, it gives me the goosies talking about it. The goal is not to have PTSD. It's okay if you survive and you don't get damaged, you know? So I think just that awareness of it'll affect you, and to be aware of that, because I had no idea going in, like, the effects it would have on my life. You know, like a line of duty death is the hardest thing I think you'll ever experience.
Probably, I would say, yeah.
I don't think that it gets much worse than that. And you can't prepare for that, you know, but knowing just that the things will affect you. And on the flip side, like I said, that it's okay if they don't. And as long as you're being honest and authentic, like with yourself and how you feel. And then taking the ENP, I mean, I just say, just do it, right? Like, I think we are always other people's biggest cheerleaders, but we don't give ourselves that same, you know, rah-rah cheer too often. So I just think, believe in yourself and know you can do it. I mean, if you're in this industry and you love this industry and you're passionate about the work you're doing, you're going to study and you're going to pass it. I mean, I just think if that's how you feel about the industry, you'll put in the work and you'll get your ENP and you'll be super proud of yourself.
So when you were the cheerleader at work, did you start your shift with "Ready, let's go"?
No, because I was not a cheerleader ever in real life. I will tell you what I did though. I think that they're like talking about leadership. Like, you don't get me started on this because I'll really tangent off. But I think that people overcomplicate leadership. I think your people want to feel valued, and I think they want you to be authentic. And I think when you give them those things, they give you a lot back, right? Like,
that's great. I like that, actually.
You know, I mean, so my shift every day, the supervisor, you had to write out the deployment, right? Because we had different radios. Everybody couldn't do different, you know, everything. And I always would write a quote on the top. And sometimes it'd be super deep, you know, real thoughtful, self-reflecting. And other times, you know, I'd throw a funny, you know, like, you can do it, put your back into it, Ice Cube, you know, a little rap lyric for them. But it was all me, and like, they loved it. When I left, they were like, oh man. And it was funny. I've been gone for almost 2 years now. I've had some people randomly text me that comes up like on their Facebook memories. They're like, look I took a picture of your quote. It like really
funny.
mattered to me. So it's like, oh, yay. But
that's
yeah.
Cool.
So I just think authentic and value your people. I think people overcomplicate leadership.
Deep Thoughts by Stacy Miller.
Deep Thoughts, yeah.
That's an old Jack Handy reference that most people also won't get.
I know that.
I know you do. We're not that far apart. I'm a little
I know. That's what I told you.
You and I probably remember a lot of the same stuff.
I bet we do, for sure. Yeah. That's funny. Now those will be in my head.
That's it, you know. I'm heading right to YouTube as soon as we get off here.
The Deep Thoughts.
Everybody else is Googling Jack Handy, Deep Thoughts. What the hell is that?
Like, what is that? What is that? Yeah, so there's all kinds of stuff.
We just turned on a whole bunch of new young kids to Jack Handy, Deep Thoughts.
100%. It's gonna, you know what? It's all of a sudden it's gonna be trending today. I bet it is gonna be trending, and it all started here.
And they're gonna go, ooh, they're so old.
They're so old. No, I told you. They said, how do they have all this history? They look so young.
Yes, there you go. I'm gonna keep thinking that.
Hey, like I said, we got to be our own cheerleaders, right? We have to give ourselves the same cheers, the same grace that we give everybody else.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a fun conversation.
Oh, thanks. I've had fun too.
I'm not sure we talked a whole lot about ENP stuff, but we had a great time reminiscing about two different sides of the country.
I have to show you what actually came today.
Oh, you got the box.
You probably can't see it because of my blur, but yeah. Anyway.
The box of goods.
Yeah, it all came today. There we go.
Nice.
The post office was a little rough with the box, but
you know what? That's interesting, because the people at the Nina Institute board that created that box put a lot of thought into protecting the contents.
Yeah, and I will say the contents are all intact. So the contents are protected. But the
Excellent.
Postal Service definitely roughed it up a little bit.
Yeah, a bunch of angry people that want a different job.
Maybe so. They're like, oh, 911, I called one time. I'm going to rough handle this box. But no, I was super excited to get it today. I mean, again, it's just one of those things you're like, wow, I did it.
So look at the information in that box that tells you about the frames that you can order. There are incredible frames that you can order.
Oh, that's awesome.
You should really make an investment. I have mine just in normal frames up on the wall, but they've got some incredible ENP related frames that I'm seriously thinking about getting mine all reframed. But
yeah, no, I will. I didn't even look at that stuff. Like, I went and checked the mail probably like a half hour before we met. So I opened it up. I was like, oh, this is exciting. So
did you get the challenge coin?
I got a flyer about how I could order a challenge coin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Was that something I could have ordered back when I signed up? I probably.
Well, anybody can have an ENP challenge coin, to my knowledge. I thought they were giving those out as part of the gift box. I
should probably tell Brooks over at Nina that I'd like a challenge coin.
Yep.
No, I don't know though. I think everybody who's passionate about this industry should believe in themselves and do it. I think it's pretty special.
Yeah, I've actually got mine. I got mine right here. Oops. I'll even take it out of the sleeve so you can see it better.
I love a challenge coin.
So
now that I know you're a challenge coin carrier, next time I see you,
challenge me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'll make sure.
So that's number 9. That's number 9 out of 100. This was some of the first round that was given to the Nina Executive Board or the Nina Institute Board.
How often do they redesign the coin, or do they?
I don't know that it has been redesigned. To be honest
cool.
With you.
That's kind of cool, though. I like that.
I don't think they number them anymore, though.
Yeah, there's probably too many.
The first 100 were numbered.
Very cool.
And then they reserved 50 for the Executive Board, the Nina Institute Board, and future board members. And then 51 through 100 were offered for sale.
Okay.
And then beyond that, the unnumbered ones were always offered. But no one ever actually answered my question ever. But I've never been told that they're not available to non-ENPs.
Oh, you would think
just like a department. Yeah, that's
coin. True. You can have a challenge coin. You can have one. Anybody, they can give one to anyone.
I mean, I've got FBI challenge coins.
Yeah.
No way they would hire me.
They're like,
I'm on a list, but I'm not on the right list.
You're not on the right list. Yeah, you might be on an FBI list, but not the right one.
Yeah.
I love a good challenge coin. And you always feel so like it's an honor, right? If someone wants to give you a challenge coin from their department. So
absolutely.
100%.
Over the years, I get quite a few, and I don't have a nice rack for them, but I've got a big pile of them over there.
I just have mine. I have one I carry with me. That's, because you have to. Well, you don't have to, but if you don't want to lose, you better carry a coin.
In case you're challenged.
Yes, and better have yours next when I see you. But I just have mine in my desk. I don't have a nice rack for them either. So one day.
Yep. No, that's what I'm working on. I'm shopping around for a nice display rack, and then I'll put them up there. So
very cool.
But story for another time. Well, listen, be sure. I'm not sure what we're going to do as far as checking back, but you are definitely on my check back list.
Oh, thanks. I had a great time. It's nice chatting with you and finally getting to meet you. You're a legend, and I hadn't met you yet.
Oh, come on. Now, don't say that to me. My head is going to get like that.
Legend. Hey, it's a small group,
Legend in my own mind.
Legend status. Yeah. See, let Steve know.
I know Steve Raucher. That's why I'm a legend.
No. You're a legend. I say you let him know that you are a legend.
So I keep threatening him that I'm going to buy him a royal blue shirt and put them on late night TV. Right, you gotta buy 911 right now. It's great. You can make one call and get the second call free. I love them to death.
I know you do. I think you guys, like we talked about, I mean, I won't give away all your secrets, but I think you guys, I love the history of y'all's relationship. So
we'll see.
Very cool.
We're both afraid to talk about the past because we know that there's shit there and we just don't know what's going to come out.
Exactly, right? But that's why, I mean, you guys, like, you both know it. So you're like, okay, even. Like,
we did a podcast together. We did a podcast together and we were both like nervous as hell.
Like, it's not going to bring up that one time, right? Like, you know.
What's he going to say? What's he going to say? Okay.
Oh, that's funny. I'll have to go find it and and watch it.
Freaking hilarious. It was only audio, I can tell you that.
Oh, only audio?
Because the expressions on our faces would have been like, hello, Steve.
Like you're both being very formal just to try to like make sure. Well, yeah, you're supposed to like chat beforehand, set up the ground rules.
Yeah,
like,
well.
You guys weren't.
We did that, but it didn't help.
It didn't help. Too much history there for y'all.
Yeah, there is. So,
but that's good.
All right, listen, congratulations.
Okay, thank you
I'm
so
expecting
much.
Wonderful things from you.
I got to find something to do. I got to find a committee to join. I got to do something. I want to learn. I want to learn and do stuff, contribute.
You've got no excuse not to get involved.
I know. I just got to find something. So if you think of anything that's a good fit for me, you send it my way.
You got it.
Absolutely.
Good talking to you, Stacy.
All right. Thanks,
glad you joined me today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll talk to you again sometime.
All right. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Off the Cuff, Confessions of an ENP. I'm Mark Fletcher, ENP, and I'm the Vice President of Public Safety Solutions at 911 Inform. Off the Cuff is sponsored by 911 Inform, delivering next-generation 911 solutions to the enterprise today and making every second count. Visit them on the web at 911inform.com. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at Fletch911. Check out all my blogs and podcasts at Fletch.tv. And be sure to like and subscribe below. That way you'll be immediately notified whenever a new podcast is published. Thanks so much for listening. If you're in public safety, thanks for what you do. Take care and have a great day.